All right, we are going to be doing 8.3 day 2 special right triangles. So let's recap what we did last time just so we know what we're doing. So we dealt with special right triangles with 45, 45, 90. So what that idea is if you have two triangles that have 45 degrees in it, you're going to have two sides that are also congruent. My pen. All right, so we have a triangle. If we have 45, 45, there we go. So that idea is if I had two sides that were 6, how would I find out what this side was? Well, usually we would do 6 squared plus 6 squared, and then we would find c squared, which is always across from that hypotenuse, okay? So then I'd have 36 and 36 equals x squared, which would be 72. And then I would square root. So instead of doing this every time, and then I could break this apart, 36 and 2, and then I could have 6 root 2. So the idea is whatever your leg is, if you times that by the square root of 2, that's always going to be your hypotenuse, okay? So that's that idea. So the next one we're going to do is called special right triangles with 30, 60, 90, okay? So I'm going to draw that triangle. If you could do the same, I'm going to draw it the best I can. So I have 30 degrees right here, which is known as the short leg, okay? It's going to be across from what's known as the short leg, okay? It's the smallest leg because it has the smallest degrees opposite of it. I have a 60 degrees right here, and we're going to call that the middle leg, okay? It's bigger than the short, and we will put that right there. Then I have my hypotenuse right here, and across the way from the 90 degrees is what's known as the hypotenuse, okay? Now, the relationship of this one is the short leg. Let's just call that n, okay? So whatever that number is. Now let's talk about the relationship between the short leg and the middle leg. So the middle leg is n root 3. So whatever n is, and then you're going to times it by root 3 to get the 60 degrees. The 60 degree middle leg is very interesting. And the last one is the hypotenuse, which is 2n. So it's going to be double the short leg, okay? So that's what our idea is if we have one of the legs, can we go backwards and find the other leg? So if I have the hypotenuse, I can divide it by 2 and find the 30 degrees, okay? If I have the middle leg, I can divide by root 3 and find the 30 degrees, okay? Going from middle to hypo is a little bit tricky if we don't know what that n is. All right, so let's try this out. So the first example, here we go. So first we need to figure out what we have. It looks like we have the hypotenuse, okay? So if I have the hypotenuse, I want to find the short leg. And the short leg is the one that isn't identified, okay? That's that 30 degrees. So if I want to find the short leg, I'm going to divide this by 2. Okay? The outside numbers I'm going to divide, and it's going to be 8 root 3. That's going to go over here. Okay? Now it's very interesting. So the hypotenuse has the root 3. Okay. So let's think about this. Okay. All right, my colors are a little funky, I apologize. So I have the hypotenuse of 16 root 3. I have the short leg of 8 root 3. So those have root 3s. So let's think about this. If the 30 and the 90 have the root 3, then the 60 will not. Okay? So let's prove that. Let's prove that assumption. All All right. So I have 60 degrees. I have X right here. How do I find it? Well, if I'm going to go from the short leg, okay, if I'm going to go from the short leg of 8 root 3, and I'm going to times it to get the middle leg. Because the short leg is n and the middle is n root 3. So what's the difference? I'm going to times it by root 3. Now these two numbers are on the inside. So I'm going to multiply those together. So 8 root 9, the square root of 9 is 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. Okay. And that's how I'm going to find the 60 degrees. So that's why it's a little bit tricky. If you ever want to go from the 60 to the hypotenuse, it's a little complicated. You have to do two separate things. So that's why I always go to the short leg. Can I focus on what the short leg is and find out what my n is? All right, number 2. So I have across from the 7, so 30 degrees is the 7. Okay, so this one's a little bit easier. So right now the n is 7 because that is the short leg. Okay, so now I can find both of them pretty easily. So my 60 degrees is my y because that's across from, it's across the way. So the 60 is n root 3. So I'm going to take this 7 and times it by root 3. And if I want to find the 90 degrees, which is currently your x, I'm going to take my n and times it by 2. Okay, so I focus on the relationship between the short leg and the middle leg or the hypotenuse, and then you can go vice versa, because either you're timesing by 2, timesing by root 3, or dividing by both of those. All right, number 3. So I have 60 degrees is what I have, okay? So if I have 60 degrees, I don't have the 30 degrees. Let's find it. So the 60 degrees is 12. So this is the one that gets a little tricky. So if I want to go smaller, I don't times by root 3. I have to divide by root 3 to find the short leg. So this is something that we did last year, or hopefully, okay? And then I'm going to times by root 3 by top and bottom. So I have 12 root 3 over 3 times 3 is the square root of 9. Okay, so the top number, 12 and 3, one's on the outside, one's on the inside because they're not both in the radical. Compared to these are both inside the radical. So the whole point of this is to get rid of the radical in the bottom, in the denominator. We do that, it's called rationalizing the denominator. Okay, it's a math rule. We can't have a denominator of a radical. So we get rid of the radical in the denominator, and then 12 divided by 3, they're both on the outside, so I can simplify it, okay, just like a regular fraction, and that is 4 root 3. Okay, it's kind of like the last one, so 4 root 3. So if my short leg, my 30 degree short leg, the one that's across from the 30 degrees, is 4 root 3. We know the hypotenuse is also going to have, let's do a different color. We know the hypotenuse is also going to have root 3 because it's double it. So 4 root 3 times 2, well, the 2 is on the outside, so it's 8 root 3. Okay, so that's the most complicated it will get, is if your 60 degrees does not have a root 3, then your short leg and your middle leg has to, or sorry, your short leg and your hypotenuse has to have the root 3. All right, so that's a pattern that you should be seeing. All right, an equilateral triangle has a perimeter of 18 inches. Find the length of the altitude. All right, so perimeter, equilateral. Here we go. So we know that they're all 60 degrees because 180 divided by 3 is 60 degrees. And let's do 18 divided by 3, which is also 6. So all of these sides are 6. And they want me to find the altitude, which is the height. And there we go, 90 degrees. So then we have a 3, 6, and then we don't know what that altitude is. So let's find it. So if this is 60 degrees, this is 90, well then by golly, we have a 30 degrees. That worked out pretty nicely. All right, so we have 3 down here, and we have a 6 as the hypotenuse. Change the colors here. So they work out pretty nicely. Okay. I'll change that to 60. Here we go. All right. So we have the short leg, pretty convenient. And we have the hypotenuse, which is double it, which should be happening. Okay. So if the n is 3, this makes this 2n, which makes sense, okay? 2n. So now we need to just find the one that's across from the 60, okay? So I have 3 times root 3, and that will be your altitude. Woohoo! All right, next one, equilateral triangle. Here we go. So instead of doing that whole circus, I'm going to cut it in half just like I did above. Because I'm going to cut it in half, 30, 60. And how can I cut it in half? Because it's an equilateral triangle, and the altitude is going to go straight through it. Okay. And also with the 180, 90 situation. 180 minus 60 and 90. All right. So, if I have an altitude of 9, I have the one across from the 60. Do I see a root 3 happening? I don't see it. So what does that mean? That means the other two have to. So let's find the short leg. Okay, so I'm going to do 9 divided by root 3. Now remember, I have to get rid of the radical in the denominator. I can't leave it like that. So then I have 9 root 3 over root 9. So 9 root 3 over 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3 root 3. Okay, so that is the short leg. Ta-da! So 3 root 3. If I wanted to find the hypotenuse, I'm going to double the 3. So 3 times 2 is 6 root 3. Okay, if you want to say, is that going to work? Like, does that make sense? You can always go backwards as well. 3 root 3 times root 3. I have 3 times 9, and then 3 times 3 is 9. So then you can go back to the 60 degrees and just make sure we're good to go. All right, last one. So I'm going to break this apart just so I can see it a little better. So I have this triangle right here. And I have a 90 degree right here. So I know that the hypotenuse is the x. Oopsie. It went a little wild on me. I apologize. So here we go. So I have my x, and my 30 degrees is right over here, 4 root 3. So what does that mean? That means that this little nugget should be 60, and that goes right here. Okay, so it looks like I have the 60 degrees is 12, and it looks like my 30 degrees is 4 root 3. I like to write it out just so I know what I'm doing. Okay, and then the 90 degrees is my x. So instead of dealing with the 60 degrees, I can just deal with the 30 degrees because the short leg, the one across from the 30, is the short leg. And if I want to find the hypotenuse, I'm just going to double it. So that is 8 root 3. So that is x. Okay? All right. What do I want to find now? Okay, so now let's focus on this other triangle. I'm going to highlight it in yellow and just see what does this one have. All right, so that one has the one across from the 60. So it just has changed roles now. And it's also that one's 60 degrees. So if you don't want to redraw it, don't feel like you have to. I like to see kind of what I'm doing here. Okay, there we go. 30 degrees. So we're trying to find the one across from the 30. Got it. Okay, and I have the one that is the 60 degrees. So 60 degrees for this one is 4 root 3. And I want to find the one that is the 30 degrees, so I have to divide it by root 3 and go bye-bye to make it smaller. If I want to go smaller, I'm going to divide. If I'm going to go bigger, I'm going to multiply. Okay, so y is not 4 degrees, just 4. Here we go. So 4 goes right there. All right, so thank you so much and hope you have a